Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined by singer Vanessa Rae. Vanessa, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this. Before we get started, I just want to give a little background because there's a funny story to how I discovered Vanessa Rae and her music. And for my loyal listeners, you'll know that a few months ago I did a podcast with another Vanessa Rae. And her and I, the other Vanessa Rae, we'll call her, shared a virtual stage in an event, and we kind of connected right away. And so I Googled her because she sings a little bit as well, and the Vanessa Rae that is on the show now popped up, and I started digging into her music and was completely touched by her talent, and immediately was like, man, I wish I could one day get her on my show as well. And here it is. We're here with I don't know how you want to separate the Vanessa Rays, but the Vanessa Rae I found while looking for the other Vanessa Rae. So here we are. It was fate.
Right? I love that story. I
So
think that's so cool.
it is. It's funny. And they say nothing ever happens by chance. So here we are. So before we get started in the conversation, though, Vanessa, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Vanessa Rae today?
Gosh, today, I like that word today. So I'm a lot of things. I feel like I wear a lot of hats. I'm a mom and a wife. Um, First and foremost, like I'm a Christian, and pretty much every day I wake up the same way and just ask God, what do you have in store for me today? And over the last few years, he's really put it on my heart that I needed to be doing music. I've always loved music so much. And when I really got to know and really gave my life to Christ is when a whole new just dream unlocked. And that's when I began writing music. And so I'm a singer, songwriter, mom, Jesus follower. Wherever he wants to take me is where I want to go. That kind of sums me up.
I love it. I love it. And I think your story is pretty incredible, and somewhat parallels my story. And as I learned a little bit more about that, it was just another reason why I wanted to have you on the show. And it's funny what you said a little bit in your introduction. Where you felt this calling and this pressing, and music's always played a part in your life, but didn't seem like it was ever really a dream for you to record and throw your music out there. And it wasn't until just a little while ago where you felt this calling that you need to use your voice. God gave you this gift that it's you need to use your voice. So tell me a little bit about that journey, and did you embrace it at first, or did you kind of fight it off and say, Lord, I think you got the wrong number on this one? That's the person a couple blocks down the road.
Right? Well, first of all, like I absolutely never thought that like I would have the guts to stand on a stage of any sort at a church or at a venue and sing. Oh my gosh, even just like I remember, in high school when you have to get up and do a presentation, it's like, oh, you can't sleep for 2 days before you have to get up there and do a 5-minute presentation. But I'd say it started 5 years ago is when my life was really broken. I was in the midst of trying to save my first marriage, and somehow all the stars aligned, and I gave my life to Christ. And right about that time, it was just like flooding me worship music and the fact that I wanted to sing. It's more like I saw the vision, but yeah, I thought there's no way, or like that dream passed long ago. Because I mean, I remember when I was going into high school, the counselor, you sit down and he asks you, what do you want to do when you grow up? So I can help you decide on what classes to take. I want to be a famous singer. I had this dream, but it seemed like as crazy as winning the Olympics, like not going to happen. So anyways, that all just went away, but I loved music. I've always loved music. I've been to probably well over 100 concerts. Um, and anyways, so let's go back to, yeah, 5 years ago, it just started just hitting me. And then I was going to church and I would just look up on that stage at the people that were up there worshiping, and oh my gosh, I wanted to do that so bad. And it was just on my heart, but I still at that point wasn't anywhere near being ready to do that. Um, anyways, then about 2.5 years ago, probably, I have a guitar. I've had a guitar for a long time, maybe 15 years. During COVID, I was just picking it up, learning more on YouTube, singing fun stuff at home, just more so cover songs. I wasn't songwriting at all. And so I was just having fun. Well, one day my daughter, her name's Charlie, she came home and she was in a little singing group, no big thing, like a once a week little singing technique thing. She comes home and she's like, Mom, we have a chance to go record whatever song we want at a recording studio. It's $150. And, my kids do so many things and activities, and you can't say yes to everything. So I said, no, that's a lot of money. Maybe if you stick to this for a year or two, sure, I'll let you go record a song. All my daughter has to do is give me like these puppy dog eyes. And I'm like, yes, whatever you want. So, of course, I got the eyes from her and I said, let's go do it. So we went into the studio, and as she has her little headphones on and she's singing her song, I was just like, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this just as a bucket list thing. I have to record one song just to pass down to family, just because there was just something in me that was burning and I had to do it. So I bought a package with a local recording studio with that same guy, and started recording from there. Still never had the desire at all to release it to anyone. Um, it's such a long story, but I didn't know where to put the songs once I made them. So he said, well, it's anyone can upload music to Apple Music and Spotify. And I was shocked by that because I thought you had to be signed by a record label or something. I didn't know that Joe Schmo can sit in his office, make a song and put it up there for the world. So then I've made an account. I uploaded my own music. Then I started sharing it, and then it just went from there, and one door opened after another, and the story goes on and on, but that kind of sums up how this whole thing started.
Yeah. What was that first song that you recorded?
The first song that I recorded some just random cover songs, but the first song that I wrote and recorded and released is called Brand New Start. And it's actually such a perfect song to be my very first one.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So, um, who were some of your, as you're growing up, you said you kind of had the dream initially, let it go away. But who were some of your big musical influences throughout your lifetime?
Um, I would say that the very first one, and this one actually means so much to me. The first one that just made me love music, and it's crazy because it was in the midst of my parents had just gotten a divorce, and I feel like it was, I could put my headphones in and it comforted me so much. It was Jewel, and her album Pieces of Me. Oh my gosh, I listened to that so much, and I would say, like, hands down, she was the biggest inspiration and piece to that burning desire for me. And then, gosh, throughout the years, I have loved so many musicians and genres. And I would say John Mayer, I've been a huge John Mayer fan for a long time. I just saw him in concert for the 11th time, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't listen to him as much anymore. And I don't really follow his new stuff because I usually have the Christian station on in my car. And that's kind of what I'm listening to these days. But he was a big one. There's so many. Jason Mraz is a good one. I'd say those were like you know, the back in the day, but there were so many.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jewel, boy, you want to talk about some incredible stories. There's an incredible story for sure. So, that influence, not just musically, but, emotionally, I'm sure with what you were going through at that point probably helped a lot in your life.
Seriously, yeah, that was such a good album. I think I need to revisit it.
So you said you had played the guitar, but again, sounds like just kind of dabbling in it a little bit until the pandemic came along, and then decided to get a little bit more well versed in it. From that time till when you actually started writing songs, like what was it during that period as you were learning guitar where, then you felt the inspiration to write and put your thoughts down on paper and add music to it? How did that process come about?
So I'm going to start with just telling you about a vision, basically, that I got probably 6 months before I ever wrote a song. But I, it was probably just over 2 years ago. I was just getting these visions of myself on a stage, and it was definitely singing, and then some speaking, some testimony, just like standing up on a stage and helping people. And I got married about a year and a half ago, but he was my boyfriend at the time. We just really felt like God had a huge calling for us. And one day we sat down and I was telling him about these visions I was having, and he was like, I'm having the same visions. And what's weird is like, that was those were not any desires of mine whatsoever. I had been through a lot with just my own divorce, and I was at a point in my life where I wanted to be a little homebody and live a very private life. And so to have God giving me these visions of like speaking out through my trials and, the things that I had learned to a bunch of people on a stage was like, whoa. So that was kind of, it was really weird. But I also like my relationship with God and like what I've learned about him. There isn't anything that I think is too big for him or too crazy. So these visions, I kind of just like tucked them away, knowing God will do his thing. And then about 6 months later, and those visions happened before I ever went to the recording studio with my daughter. So they happened at like, when I really had nothing going on that was anywhere close to being on a stage. Um, so yeah, about 6 months later, honestly, like I would just wake up in the morning with a melody and lyrics, and I would just get up. Like the morning's my favorite time before the rest of the house gets up. It's quiet. And I felt like it was God just like flooding me with a melody and lyrics that I didn't sit down with a blank sheet of paper and think I'm going to write a song right now. They just kind of wrote themselves, and I kind of took them, put them to life. So, and it's just gone from there.
Yeah. And it's amazing how, you know, God will use, what seems like the most ordinary people to, ultimately end up doing some extraordinary things. And, when you were talking earlier about, just nervousness of being on a stage when you were younger and that sort of stuff. I mean, something I can definitely relate to. Because there was a time in my life where I absolutely hated being in front of people and speaking in front of people. And, now speaking is one of the things I do. My old organization, when we would have our banquet, like I couldn't even eat, and I wasn't even actually like the keynote speaker. I was literally going up there to introduce the keynote speaker, but I couldn't eat a meal prior to because I felt like I would throw up if that would be the case. And you know, to allow ourselves to really be vulnerable and to revisit what can be some very painful times in our lives to help others is an extraordinary gift. So, as you were kind of going through that process of, God telling you, use your test as your testimony. Um, how much, I mean, because I can personally say I fought it a lot. So I always like to hear, the story from other people when they're feeling that calling, like, did you embrace it? Did you fight it? I mean, what was that like when you're like, man, I'm just healing from these scars, and now you want me to show them to the world? Like, why?
Yep, that's such a good question. I would say, to be honest with you, because God has made himself so clear to me, I haven't had much opportunity to fight it, unfortunately. But I do remember one time, actually, that was probably like right around when I was getting those visions. I was sitting in church and I felt God tell me, you need to post your testimony on Facebook. And like I said, I was really trying to stay private. I hadn't been on social media much at all. Um, and so I felt him tell me that in church one morning. And I was like, I'll think about it, you know? And then that day I was driving home with my kids from somewhere, and I talked to Siri if I want her to play a song for me. And do you know who Carly Pearce is, the country singer?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I had heard one of her new songs on the radio at that time, just one time, and I thought, dang, this is catchy. So I was driving home and I say, hey, Siri, play the new song by Carly Pearce, thinking it was going to be just her fun country song. And the song that came on was called Truth Be Told by Matthew West. And it was the version that has Carly Pearce in it. And it's a really beautiful song. And I encourage the listeners of this podcast right now to check out the song. But the song is basically about you know, telling the truth and not hiding behind this perfect facade, and just breaking down the walls and being honest. And the fact that God, he reaches out to the broken people. And the song, I knew the second the song came on, I just started bawling because I knew that was God's confirmation. Like, tell the truth, just do what I asked you to do in church this morning. So I got home, and I think that night I just typed up my testimony. And yeah, so God hasn't given me much opportunity to ignore him. You know, he's confirmed things so much for me. So I love that question though. But yeah, that there's a little example of me being on the fence, but then getting that confirmation from him.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you do get those confirmations, at that point, like there is no question anymore. It's like, okay, we're gonna do it, and I'm gonna throw myself out there, and I'm just gonna put it into your hands what those results are. And that is, when you mentioned that song, like literally the hair on my arm stood up because I'm very familiar with that song, and it is, and anyone who hasn't listened to that song, um, check it out for sure, because it is it's an incredible song. And it, as you were talking about that, it actually reminded me a little bit of, um, as you're telling that story, I was thinking of one of your songs, one of the first songs of yours that I'd listened to, which is "I'll Go First." Almost seems like how long after that incident did you write that song? Because it seems like there's pieces of what you were talking about throughout that song of yours.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I've never put those two together. Um, but yeah, they totally have similar meanings and stories. Probably at least a year and a half in between.
Wow,
But yeah,
wow,
I'm sure that's just one of the many things that, like I've tucked inside of me, and totally could have been in one of the inspirational pieces of writing that song.
yeah, well, that's true. I mean, when a seed gets planted, you never know how long it's going to take for it to bloom. It could be within a couple hours or a couple months, or it could be, a couple years. So you never realize when when that's happening, until you kind of reflect back and be like, okay, now I can, see where this came from. So it's amazing. And I love the fact that, you know, your creativity, comes from a part where like literally you're waking up in the morning with, this inspiration to write, because that's an incredible gift. I mean, I know, for me as a different type of writer, I mean, there's times where, it just seems like you struggle to put something down, and then there's other times where it just flows, and those times when it just flows, that it is what it's supposed to be. Are there, when you sit down, when you wake up like that, are you writing that whole song in one sitting, or is it you're doing a couple verses and then you're coming back to it, or like how does that work for you? What is that process like?
It depends on the song and the day and how much time I have, but a lot of times it is just like one half of a chorus or a melody, and I will grab my phone and I'll go to the voice memos, and I'll just, if it's just a melody, I'll hum it out, and if it's some lyrics, I'll just, I have to get that first idea down because I'm afraid that I'll totally forget it within 5 minutes. So I have hundreds, I mean, probably 800 voice memos on my phone. of so many, I'll have a song on there and then there's probably 20 more that go to that same song. Even if it's just a change in the melody of one word, I'll make another voice memo. And then other times, like if I have a really quiet moment and I have time, I can write almost a full song. But I feel like the times when it really just comes to me is totally when it's a song that's meant to be, and like God gives me that, gift in that moment. But there has totally been times for me too when I try to sit down and finish something that I know has so much potential and I love it. And yeah, you totally get that writer's block. And but then you have to just realize I'm going to put this away, and at the right time, it's gonna come back or come to me.
Yeah. So recently it kind of shifted a little bit when you first started this, this new musical journey of yours. You're really kind of, um, you know, every type of genre was shown up in your music. And just recently you've had a shift where you really, want to tell more of your spiritual journey through your music. What, what was it that inspired that shift?
I would say so. I've always tried to, not even tried. I've always enjoyed adding pieces of my faith and God in my music. Every show or opportunity I've had to sing, I always throw a little testimony in there or just talk about God, because that was just so important to me. And um, I honestly think that what really made things super clear for me was we started going to a new church a couple months ago, and I feel like there's been, well, since I started going there, God has made things so clear to me and just put so many people in front of me that I knew that needed to be in my life. I joined the worship team, and just the way that they worship is it's what I envisioned from the second I gave my life to God. And I've waited 5 years to be a part of what was burning inside of me. And so the feeling I got like worshiping with that worship team, I was comparing what that feels like to when I'm singing my own songs about myself, like at a show. And there is no comparison. The peace that I have when I'm singing about God, um, is just a whole nother ball game. And so it wasn't even a question. Like I just really felt like in my heart, it's time to, I don't want to say make the switch because it sounds like it's a huge switch, and I don't feel like it is, but just to sing things that honor God. And a lot of them are going to be about me because they're my story, my journey. But ultimately, I want the songs to have like a resolution, which is Jesus is the answer to the healing. So yeah, it came pretty clearly to me that I just want to sing for him. And he gave me the gifts, he gave me the calling, he gave me the vision about being on stage and speaking and singing. So I'm going to be honest with you, the fear of rejection, because as a Christian, you totally, you're subject to being rejected by people, even the nicest people in the world that just don't understand. And there was still a part of me that wanted to be able to cover a lot of bases and not totally like weird anybody out, or make anyone think, oh gosh, she's holier than thou, because I am just a regular person and I'm trying to do my best every day and walk in God's will for me. So I think God put it on my heart, you know what, like time to step out in faith. And, if I'm walking with him, then he's going to make it okay. And I don't have to be afraid of the rejection, in my boldness of my songs and singing for him and about him.
Yeah, and I think that's just, a perfectly normal human characteristic. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved by, literally everybody, but at the end of the day, I think, the people who really get you and the people who are supposed to be in your life are going to stand by you regardless of that. And it's just a matter of us as humans accepting that, okay, these people are no longer part of my journey, but yet they still played an integral part in making you who you are today. It's just they're not with you now. And it's tough. It's tough to accept that. It's tough to accept that as a human being to, just say, okay, I'm going to let go of that piece of my life and move on. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that we all battle with, is to just get over that and understand that he's going to put the people in your life that need to help you grow to where you need to be at the next level, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that pretty much sums up, like, yeah, the last year and a half for me. Like, I faced a lot of changes with friendships and things like that. And it was so painful. But like I said, like, God has put so many people in my life. And I'm like, oh, that's why you made space. Like, that space felt really lonely and painful for a while. But seeing the amazing people that have filled up that space just blows me away. And it just makes me just trust him and thank him even more.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. So again, we both talked about this a little bit, um, about our fear of getting on stage, getting in front of people. Um, when made that plunge to get out there and get on stage, and when you're singing, because I know I've had a couple opportunities. Like I said, I always disclose I'm not a musician. I don't have talent. I do play harmonica a little bit, and I know one time a couple of my old players who were in a band, we were doing a fundraiser for an organization. They reluctantly got me up on stage with my harmonica, and it was a feeling like I'd never felt before when I kind of connected with the people who were in the audience. And even when I'm speaking now, and I'm kind of scoping the room and making contact, like there's a sense where you really connect, and you're like, okay, it brings an incredible sense of peace and satisfaction over you. Um, so when you're on stage singing, um, you know, how are you drawing from the energy of the audience when you're on stage?
Um, let's see. Well, I can talk about the worship side or just when I've done my own shows. But it is weird because I do get super nervous beforehand. Or I had, especially with just when it was just Vanessa Rae, all about me, my songs. Um, I would get super nervous. Yeah, hard to, you don't want to eat. Oh gosh. But once you get up there, like, I have felt a supernatural peace come over me. And I really feel like my thing is connecting with the audience. Like, singing is just 50% of what I'm even doing up there. And the shows that I've done, I have I've had a blast with the connecting with the audience, telling stories. Um, I like to make people laugh too. So, like, throwing in some humor, that makes me feel like the most fulfilled, and like know that that's part of my calling. And then so there's that side, but then on the worship side, like yesterday I sang with the worship team at church, and it's really weird just how much peace the Holy Spirit can give a team of people. Because I could walk out there yesterday with honestly not 1 ounce of fear or stress at all, like, pure peace. And like I said, with me changing pretty much to just doing Christian music, the peace that comes from knowing that, like, I'm not singing for Vanessa, I'm singing for God. And this isn't about me. It's not about what I look like, or, it's not about me. And it's not about me being perfect. It's about God and helping people connect to him. And I know that's what I'm here for. So just the peace. I told my husband, like, oh, the peace that I felt yesterday singing, it's it can only be from God.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what's next for Vanessa as we're looking forward?
You know what's cool? I'm in this place right now where I don't have a show of my own planned. I am super busy. I have two kids. They're in a million activities. I'm a wife, I have a household to try to maintain. Um, I feel I've really jumped into my new church, and I'm really busy with a lot of things going on with the church and the worship team. And I'm writing a ton of Christian music right now. And actually, right after this podcast, I'm running over to a friend's house who is an amazing musician, and we're making a demo of a song I wrote. So I'm sure within a few days, I'll have a little something on Instagram. Um, I'm just I'm making a bunch of demos, and I'm putting it in God's hands that in the right timing, the doors will keep opening as I've seen him do for me over the last few years. And I can only hope that more ears will be able to hear my story and my music. And I trust him that he'll make that happen in the right timing. So geez, there are a lot of things that are next, hopefully, that I don't even know about. So yep,
I
just
love it.
walking with him. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because so many times our plans are different from his plans. So you really got to be fluid, and obviously you want to make plans for the future, but you also need to be able to understand that they may shift. The vision that we currently have and where we want to go may not necessarily align with his, and you got to be able to be fluid and be able to shift. So I love the fact that you're kind of just you know sitting back and seeing where he's going to take you at this point. That's very cool.
It's a nice,
So
it's a peaceful place to be.
yeah, no doubt about it. So before we wrap up here, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel would be beneficial for the listeners that you want to bring up?
Ooh, well, I feel like I love what we covered, but if I could say one thing to the listener is like, don't ignore that thing that's inside of you, no matter how insane it might seem, no matter how crazy it sounds, no matter how many people will call you crazy if you go after it, because most likely it's what God put inside of you to go chase after. And just like, don't deny the power of what God can do through you. Even if you feel like you're a broken person or unusable, there's probably someone out there that needs your particular skill or story for their own journey. And yeah, just be bold and trust that God can do anything as long as you put your trust in Him.
I love that. That is great advice for sure. No matter how crazy it seems, just go ahead and do it and take that first step.
Yep.
That first step is so important.
Yep.
And trusting that. So I love that. So Vanessa, where can people find you on socials and your website? How can they get more of your music, really listen to what you're putting out there in the world, because it's incredibly beautiful what you're putting out there. So please let people know how they can find you.
I appreciate that so much. Well, I do have lots of music on all the music platforms, which is Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify. Where you'll see the most up-to-date stuff with me is going to be Instagram, and I'm under Vanessa Rae Music. I also have a Facebook, which I pretty much post the same thing to my Facebook, which is Vanessa Rae Music. I have a TikTok. I'd say I'm the most active on Instagram though. And I have a website, vanessaraymusic.com. And I have a lot of updating to do. I'm trying to like somehow figure out how to add 7 more hours to every day where I have no interruptions, because I have a lot of things that I need to do and update, and I'm going to get on it. So follow me and you'll get to probably see a lot of things kind of changing in the upcoming months.
Very cool. I love that. So that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is "Many Little People in Many Little Places," which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, "Gloria," which go, "When many little people in many little places do many little things, and the whole world changes." So it's one of the little things that Vanessa does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
What Vanessa does, you know what I do? I love to compliment people. If I'm out at the grocery store and someone has pretty hair or a cute kid or a pretty smile on their face, I don't hold it inside. Tell them, they might be having a bad day, and that little compliment can put a little more pep in their step. Try to be friendly to the person checking you out at Target, at the grocery store. Just a little kindness and a smile, and just to feel like someone sees you, that goes a long way. So that's something I like to do.
I love that. I love that. That's luckily for so many of my guests, that's a very common theme. And again, it plays right into that question. It's those little things that really do make a big difference to the person that you're interacting with, because you have no idea what they're going through during the day. And that little smile, that little compliment, they could have just had 5 miserable customers in a row, and you thanking them for, checking you out, just brighten their day a little bit, because they were starting to question what was going on there. So for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of one of my books. And Vanessa, appreciate this conversation so much. I'm glad we were able to connect, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your music career going forward.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it so much.
You bet.